You're emotional. I'm emotional. We are not ourselves.
it.
You don't even know what you're trying to say.
I know exactly what I am trying to say.
Well, I don't. But I think it's pretty ugly what you seem to be saying, and I think you would agree if you could hear yourself.
I love horror movies. Personally, it's one of my favorite genres. I feel like in recent years, a lot of directors have had their start directing in the genre. Ari Aster is one of the most popular and talented people to do this. His major feature debut, Hereditary, and his follow-up, Midsummer, have very deep themes of family, which seems to run rampant all throughout his work. But before all this, Aster was just a student at AFI's Conservatory's film school. He directed a short film which a couple years back got a bunch of traction for its taboo themes and unhinged story. This was Something Strange About the Johnsons, a film that was almost conceived out of spite. You see, Ari Aster noticed the politically correct nature of his school, and with the future star of the short film, Brandon Greenhouse, came up with a concept so taboo it just had to come to fruition. I highly recommend giving the short film a watch. It's on YouTube. It's only 30 minutes long and it flies by. It's great. As I kind of mentioned, this film got traction a couple years back for being disturbing. However, I disagree with this notion. Honestly, I found this film hilarious. Almost as hilarious as I found it weird, but on second watch especially, I found it even more funny. Okay, let's get into it. The film starts with a sound. The sound transitions to a young Isaiah, played by Carlton Jeffrey, in bed, staring at a picture with one hand and with the other. Whoa, Isaiah's father Sidney, played by Billy Mayo, barges in. But instead of pretending like it never happened and just trying to forget it ever happened, Sidney walks back in and tries to have a conversation with Isaiah about it, trying to cut any awkwardness in between them. I want to point out how childlike Isaiah's room is, by the way. Just the color and decoration, it screams just childlike. It makes the whole thing so much more odd. This whole scene honestly just has a different context under a second watch. I think there's so much little things that make everything so much more uncomfortable, such as when Isaiah asks Sydney,
Do you do it?
At first I thought it was just Isaiah trying to find comfort, but on second watch it's just highly perverted. Sydney even says,
Like this was ugly. And hide it under the rug and let it become something taboo between us. You know what taboo is?
Yes.
It's just so ironic, but I really do think the dark humor here is intentional. I mean, it just works for me, I don't know. But Sydney leaves and then we think it's all good until... This opening I think describes the humor I gained from this film pretty well. Having something like being walked in on pretty funny, but having a dark and honestly sickening twist on it. But I guess we'll get more into that. We get the family taking a family photo, and I honestly think the abuse towards Sydney has already begun here. Just the awkward demeanor from the family, and Isaiah not even trying to hide it. Again, from my viewpoint, it's almost funny. We go into a time skip. Isaiah's getting married, and he's played by Brandon Greenhouse now. We're introduced to his mother, Joan, played by Angela Bullock, which in my opinion has the best performance of the film. We also see the abuse taking place now, and it's a lot more explicit, with Joan catching Isaiah and Sydney in the act, but Sydney being obviously very uncomfortable. Through my research, I heard that Ari Aster was going to go for a lot more comedic take, but opted out to do something more dramatic. Which takes me to the setting, being the suburbs, which honestly, if it was any other setting, I really don't think it would be as funny. The suburbs kind of grounds it in more reality. Does that make sense? It does to me. Joan, even after witnessing the abuse, asks Isaiah to go get Sydney for dinner, which to me is her just not accepting what she saw. We later learn that it's been like this for a very long time. Sydney is writing in his computer, which gives us some insight on the nature of the abuse. I like that we're not told how it started or how far down the blame goes. I think the intention was for the audience to come up with their own conclusion. But to me, I think Sydney is clearly the victim. I mean, later after seeing how manipulative Isaiah is, it's really sad to see Sydney never come out of it. At dinner, Isaiah gets his father a gift, but gets mad when his mother wants it. It describes the dynamic of the family very subtly, but brilliantly.
You want one of these?
I'm okay.
They're Belgian.
I know. Thank you. I'm okay.
I'll have one.
Well, They're dads, so you're gonna have to ask him first.
Would you like one?
Oh, maybe later.
Isaiah loves Sydney, but Sydney wants nothing to do with him. Sydney loves Joan, but Isaiah hates that, and Joan doesn't want to pay attention to any of it. Later we see Sydney writing in his book, Cocoon Man, which I think could have many different meanings. But to me, it's exactly the place Sydney is in. He's neither the past version of himself like a caterpillar, or able to move on to the future like a butterfly, but stuck in a constantly uncomfortable place like a cocoon. Isaiah finds out and scolds his father, as if it's his son.
I'm sorry.
What for? For nothing?
And I find it hilarious, honestly, even though the dynamic is disgusting. Then at a later party, Isaiah makes out with his wife very aggressively, and to me, that's him trying to make his dad jealous. I'm telling you, if this movie wasn't so well acted, this would be a comedy. This is just too funny. It also reminds me of this one Tyler the Creator clip with how aggressive they're kissing. We probably get the most disturbing scene after, though, with Isaiah going full on The Shining. And Joan turning up the volume on the TV to drown out the noise of the abuse, still not accepting what's going on. This is the last straw. Sydney takes his last copy of Cocoon Man and tries to leave when...
And what's that?
This scene is awesome, from the cinematography to the monologue Isaiah gives.
Don't shake your fucking head at me! Everything I've ever done has been for you, and for you, and for you, and to what end? I didn't ask for this. This is your thing, something you started. But I'm here now, and I'm in it, and I've given myself, and I've accepted you completely.
Again, very nuanced and uncomfortable. Uncomfortable to the point Sydney tries leaving. And well, we go from one of the most disturbing scenes to one of the most hilarious. This scene is, I'm sorry, it's hilarious. I think Brandon Greenhouse knew what he was doing, 'cause this is pure gold.
No! Don't touch him! Call the fucking ambulance!
During the funeral, Angela Bullock gives a great performance. Just having lost her husband to her son, her character is in so much pain, and she's taken a back seat up until this point. Again, we get a really funny scene as Isaiah goes to pick up his father's clothing with his wedding ring hand, and it's just a really funny shot. Then he basically cosplays as his dad, which is like, WTF, dude. It's crazy. Then Isaiah notices Joan standing in the corner and says,
How long have you been standing there?
which I think kind of describes her character throughout all these years. Not really being noticed and trying not to notice. We got a great moment with Joan admitting that she's known about the abuse, while Isaiah tries to gaslight her.
On your prom night, when he brought you back home,
What about it?
he was crying.
Was he?
Joan just wants to know when it started. She's been ignoring it so long that she doesn't even remember.
When did it start?
Until we get a clever callback and an admission from Isaiah.
I loved him better than you ever did.
Dad, I love you.
I love you back.
They fight, and it's really shocking and crazy. It leads to Joan almost getting pushed into the fireplace when she grabs a nearby poker and kills Isaiah. I don't think it's a coincidence that there's two eye shots in this movie. The first being when Joan witnesses the abuse at the wedding, and the second when she grabs the fireplace poker to kill Isaiah, almost putting an end to it all. Although she doesn't take it that well, having it all come to reality. The final shot is Cocoon Man burning in the fireplace that Joan almost did. To me, this symbolizes that although Joan has seen the reality, she still refuses to accept it. And that's something strange about the Johnsons. Very taboo, very weird, and very funny. I loved it. Ari Aster was able to create something that I haven't been able to stop thinking about since I've watched it, and I really wanted to talk about it. Making something so taboo that it's just a must watch if you're into horror, dark humor, or just films, to be honest. Okay, that's That's all. Thank you. Bye.